Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Stud Still Smash the Milkman, Keith Gasper, Raging Demon, Mast Keaton, Disc Chimera, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Andrew Liguori, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, Parallax Puddles, The Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Gary Heather, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Mike the Rep from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Redder Dreaming, and Oh Me. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. Welcome to The Flight, a consumable curation of champions and catastrophes that is considerate of your chronometer. It is I, Chris Gopleen. Welcome back to another edition of The Flight. And no, we are not remaking this or remastering this or doing anything like that because we wouldn't want you to be disappointed, like the games we are talking about today on our top 5 remakes or remasters that missed the mark, which was recommended by Omi and Keith from our Patreons. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment because I forgot to talk about it in the last episode. But before I do, I'm going to introduce you to the host we all love. It is Shane the Dick Dragon Cell Tear. What's going on, Shane?
Oh, I'm definitely not still salty about most of the things on my list for this episode. Nope, that I would never be that.
Yeah, I'm pretty salty too. I am indeed. I can't wait to start mining the salt here, mining our own salt. I do want to I do this too often, but I do want to apologize to Alt, who nominated the topic TV and movie adaptations that don't suck. That is from Alt. Thank you, Alt, for recommending that. And once again, the remakes and or remasters that missed the mark was recommended by Omi and Keith Gasper from the Main Quest podcast. They recommended this in various forms, and this is kind of the form that it took. And if you want to have a topic that you want us to talk about and nominate, all you got to do is join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Join our Discord, go to our top 5 suggestions, and then put in what you want us to talk about on the flight. But we're going to get back to what we were talking about today, which is remakes or remasters that missed the mark. How much salt is going to be involved? Well, we already know we're going to be crying it. I think your turn to go first, isn't it, Shane?
I believe that is correct, yes.
So this intro is all over but the crying. Shane, let us know what your number 5 is.
Number 5.
All right. I yearn for the mines, and I'm going to start off with one that's a little less personal to me, but it's one that has irritated me in real life, so it still counts. And that is not one, but 2 attempts to remake the game Medieval. So here's the thing, right? I did not play the original. I always thought it had a really cool aesthetic. I thought the artwork was neat. Seemed like my kind of vibe. Actually, at the time of this recording, if you happened to hang out in our Sunday stream just a day ago, as a matter of fact, you might have seen me play a game called Pumpkin Jack, which has kind of a very similar vibe. There's actually like 3 or 4 people in stream that said, hey, this looks like Medieval. So there you go. But that game was way fucking better. So they've tried twice to remaster or remake Medieval, and both times have pretty much failed miserably. The first time I believe was in about 2005, and that tanked. And then they tried it again in 2019, and that's the version that I have. I bought it for my PlayStation 4 because I was like, oh, they remastered that game that I've always thought was kind of neat but never actually played. Well, I got it on sale, so I'll get a physical copy, and I have it sitting downstairs with my PS4. And I tried to play it for maybe about an hour, and I bounced off it pretty hard. And the thing is like, there are just some strange decisions. Like there's a lot of buggy shit, especially in the 2005 version. But the part of the problem is that they don't address a lot of the archaic gameplay mechanics from the original Medieval. And really all they're trying to do is kind of slapping a coat of paint on it, which in some case, for some games, is all you really want. It's just for it to look better and run on newer hardware. But I really think this game could have been better served with some quality of life improvements, for sure. And I've heard, and this is sort of like anecdotal, I haven't confirmed it or anything, but the most recent remake actually made the game harder, which, like, why? You know, like, it's an interesting decision. Let's just go with that. It's a working designs thing that I don't agree with. But yeah,
Dark Souls.
No, that had a purposeful design. That's a whole different argument. But yeah, so I'm going to start my list off with that one. It's not like super egregious or anything. It's just like kind of a wasted opportunity, and it's worse because it's happened twice.
Yeah. I don't know. Medieval never really grabbed my attention. I'm glad it didn't, if it didn't pull it off. It's just one of those games that always flew under the radar for me. So I'm happy that I never played it.
Yeah.
Hooray. Right. My number 5. I'm a little surprised it's not higher, but yeah. Very disappointing. Panzer Dragoon. The remake that came out for like Switch and PS4. I don't know if I think it came out on PC as well. There's just something wrong with it. I can't put into words what's wrong with it. It technically looks better. It doesn't really control all that differently. It feels like no one really cared. Like they put in the bare minimum effort in order to do what they did. And you know what? That's probably not true. I don't want to make it sound like the developers. I don't know who the developers were. I think they went on to do a game. I think they were the team that ended up doing Front Mission as well. I think Front Mission first, the remake there was a little bit better. I own it. I haven't played it. Which all these games I either have played or the reputation was so bad I just didn't. There's only one game that I have not played on my list. But when I get to it, you'll know why. But yeah, something else I didn't really like about the Panzer Dragoon remake, and I really wanted to like it because I do love Panzer Dragoon. I got like the collector's edition from Limited Run, not the big one. I got the one in the Saturn case, which a little Switch game in a Saturn case doesn't make a lot of sense, but I did that, and I also got the soundtrack on vinyl because one of the best things about the Panzer Dragoon game, specifically not 2, but Panzer Dragoon 1, is that the soundtrack is like amazing. It is so beautiful. One of the best, like that intro sequence, that orchestrated soundtrack. Oh, it's gorgeous. So it's like, let me get the soundtrack, and I got an autographed copy. I got the composer's autograph and everything. The composer later found out it was from the remake. And again, I don't want to besmirch the composer. They're probably doing the best job they could. But then I listened to it, and I was like, you took a fully orchestrated track and made it MIDI? What did you do? Like, I don't know. My number 5 is Panzer Dragoon for the modern remake. It's a massive disappointment, and I can probably understand why 2 hasn't gotten its remake out yet. So yeah, this is my number 5.
Number 4.
All right. Well, we're gonna go right into the ones that now definitely have some personal skin in the game for me. And in a way, it's maybe surprising that this is a number 4, but I think once you hear the rest of mine, it'll make sense. GoldenEye Reloaded is my number 4. So, for some context, GoldenEye Reloaded is not a remake of GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64. You might think that it is, given the name, but you're a fool and you'd be mistaken. You see, GoldenEye Reloaded is a remake of a Wii game that was a reimagining of GoldenEye 64. Let that
This is where you're
just fucking sink in for a second. So if this were just an FPS, just a no name, some new IP, whatever, like it would have been fine. Like it's a competent FPS. It's not like a terrible game. It's that they tried to sell it as GoldenEye that is the problem. Like it's already 2 steps removed from the source material. I mean, 3 if you really want to talk actual source material, because GoldenEye 64 was an adaptation of a movie. So you're getting close to Kevin Bacon steps removed at this point. But like even outside of that, right? It's just like it has the most tenuous connection to GoldenEye 64. Like some of the level names are the same. Like you're like, oh, Cervanaya, that's a level that was in GoldenEye. I recognize that. And nothing else about this game is even fucking close. Like it looks like just a shameless Call of Duty ripoff. It's like the most generic looking military shooter with like a thin veneer of MI6 splattered on it. And the final insult to the, otherwise injurious attempt that they've got going on here is that for some baffling fucking reason, they felt it necessary to rewrite Trevelyan's motivations for why he does what he does. 006. Hopefully you're familiar with the story. If you're not, I'm not going to explain it all here. But basically, he was motivated into his villain arc because MI6 and the UK government basically murdered his parents. And so he was like, well, fuck these guys. I'm going rogue. And that's sort of the impetus for pretty much all of the things that happen in the movie. They're like, nah, let's throw that all out. Economy bad, money not real. That's his motivation. He wants to just cause anarchy because economy. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's just such a travesty. Especially for something that's such a beloved game for so many people. Like to even call this GoldenEye anything is just a kick in the nuts. Like it's terrible. And that's only my number 4. Just wait for the rest of this list.
Why are you doing this? Well, my Roth IRA, it's not worth anything anymore.
Yeah. I don't understand compound interest, James.
Awesome. All right, my number 4. And the only reason it's so low is because technically it's still playable and is probably the most accessible version for many people to play the games that are included on the disc. And that's the best way I can say it. But my number 4, and I'm pretty sure Shane's going to have it on his list for something I'm going to get into. It's the Silent Hill HD collection for the 360 and PS3. And we're talking about this later. Do you want me to hold off?
Go on. It's fine.
I want to say this. I know that it's going to be on Shane's list, or it should be, because Shane was getting rid of a bunch of games, and this was one of the games that he offered to me. And Shane's a big Silent Hill fan. So why would Shane do that? So the thing is that technically the games are playable, but the way they display the games are so awful. And the only one I really booted up was Silent Hill 2 because I don't know, I've never played 3, but I have played 2 and I do love 2. And I think we may have talked about this in our Silent Hill 2 episode, but there's like no atmosphere. There's no, they thought it's kind of like they were like, huh, the fog got in the way. We heard something about that being a technical limitation, but we are using the superior power of modern consoles. Let's get rid of the fog. Bit of mistake, if I do say so. It was so bad I actually had to. I mean, you're talking about the difference between a modern game and an HD resolution versus an older game in a lower resolution on the same console. I had to go to my copy on the Xbox of Silent Hill 2 and play it through the 360, even though that game is littered with bugs if you play it on the 360. Not if you play on the original Xbox, but on the 360, where James looks like a lighthouse because his flashlight not only comes out of the front of his body, but also the back. And then sometimes like random street signs make up the geometry and textures of the walls and floors at times, but that's an entirely different issue. If you just reset the game, it kind of fixes itself until it doesn't. But that's the preferred version I would rather play over the HD version. That's how much the atmosphere is ruined by what they did when they ported those 2 games over. I am baffled, and it sucks that that's the most accessible version that you can get because it's the most recent version, probably more copies of that version out there than anything else. And I don't think it's backwards compatible with the Xbox Series X, but I'm sure that more people have 360s than Xboxes, and who knows about, well, the PS2s are out there, but it's definitely cheaper than the one for the PS2. That's for damn sure. So yeah, it's disappointing, but technically it's still playable. You'll get most of what the meat of these games are. You just won't get the the atmosphere, which is one of the game's definite strengths. So that's my number 4, is the Silent Hill HD collection.
It's all right. I'll come back to that later.
Number 3.
My number 3 is one of the many things that made me realize that one of my most beloved game companies that was a mainstay of my, not only my childhood, but most of my teenage and hell, early adult years, might not be the company that it used to be. That is Warcraft 3 Reforged. Hoo boy. All right. So
Hey.
let's take a legendary RTS and claim that we're going to not only give it a nice new shiny coat of paint with updated models and textures and cinematics, but we're also going to expand on it. We're going to actually add content to a game. It's going to make it hot and fresh just for you, Mr. Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne player that you adore so much. You're going to be able to experience brand new content for the first time in years. Isn't that great? Yeah, what if we just don't do fucking any of that? What if we did that? What if we did that for you? You know what? Maybe we'll do like half of the graphical updates so it looks like this abomination of some mishmash of like old early aughts graphics and then super high res World of Warcraft models just standing next to each other, just coexisting like the bumper sticker. Like what if we did that? Oh, all the bonus content, all that extra stuff we want to include. Nah, fuck you. We're not doing that either. And hey, actually a lot of it is somehow worse than the original. It seems real buggy for some reason. And also, just why don't we tear out pieces of the original game so that the original is compatible with the reforged version should anyone want to play multiplayer? What if we were to do that? That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Yep, that's
Yeah.
what we did. What the fuck? Like, to this day, this is one of the most baffling decisions I've ever fucking seen. Like, how dare you go back and remove functionality from an existing game, one that was a fucking landmark that people, you could argue the Warcraft series, even before WoW, was a defining series for a lot of gamers, PC gamers, of course. And to go back,
Certainly was for me.
yeah, and then to go back and just surgically remove shit because you're like, you know what? We want to make it compatible with this new bullshit that we're going to try to sell you for like $60 or whatever. Man, the fucking balls. Like, whew. So, yeah, and then they never made good on any of it. You know, thank God that the D2R, you know, the Diablo 2 Resurrected actually was a really, really good remake. And I think they learned a lot of hard lessons from Reforged because, oh man, they botched it in almost every way possible.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And it's kind of like, why would you remove so much functionality from a game that essentially created like League of Legends and Dota?
Mm-hmm. Hubris, Chris. Sheer
It's
fucking
just like,
hubris.
my God. Oh man. Talk about a like corporation that's just completely out of touch with its user base.
Mm-hmm.
That's just especially a corporation that was known for being so in touch with their user base.
Yeah. The company that was known for the phrase Blizzard time because they wouldn't release a game until it was ready, even if that meant delaying it and delaying it and delaying it because they wanted it to be quality. Yeah. Quite the turnaround.
Ooh. I mean, I never played Warcraft 3. I stopped after Warcraft 2 and StarCraft. Because I thought Warcraft 2 was really perfection. I did not like Warcraft 3 to begin with, but I mean, it's hard to deny how much of an impact it did make for a lot of players. And yeah, they just, I'm sorry. And that you still have 2 to go.
I do.
All right. Yeah. So my number 3 is a game I really haven't played through all the way on either its original format. I've played enough of it. But the remake. Oh boy. It's Tales of Phantasia for the Game Boy Advance. It's a remaster port, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And this really hits hard because when Tales of Destiny came out in the United States, I didn't understand it. I picked it up because it was an RPG. I was excited to get another RPG. And it just didn't click with me. It didn't land with me. I was very confused about the fact that you only controlled one character and their party members did everything else. I thought that you were supposed to control your other party members. I didn't understand it. I don't know why I didn't understand or just I didn't like it. I don't know. But like then I started to understand later what the series was about. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, wait, there's a game that came out before Tales of Destiny for the Super Nintendo, and it was supposed to be really good. One of the later releases, one of the largest games on the Super Nintendo in terms of memory. A lot of the team from that game went on to make Star Ocean. I really like Star Ocean 2, so I was like, oh, wow, I'm very, very, very excited here. It was called Tales of Phantasia. And so I emulated it, and the first thing you get in the emulation for the Super Nintendo game, this is a Super Nintendo game, or more accurately, Super Famicom, and they're playing a musical tune with voices, like a J-pop song for the intro. I'm like, wow, like this is mind-blowing. And then Namco said that they were going to release Tales of Phantasia for the first time in the United States, because it also came out on the PlayStation in Japan. We didn't get that either. And they were going to release it on the Game Boy Advance in the United States, first time ever. English translation, let's go. It's like, this is awesome. And then you power it on, and there's no musical intro. And then you find out that they cut out a bunch of content and moves that your characters do. And they simplified it, and they dummied it down. And it's almost not even the same game. We're talking about a 32-bit console that was pretty much capable of replicating any game from the Super Nintendo, and in some cases better because you have the Castlevania games on the GBA, which were on par with Symphony of the Night for the most part, outside of like the 3D capabilities on there. And it's just like, how did you fuck this up? Perfect opportunity to score a point with the weebs, and you screwed it up. So I still don't think to this day, and if I'm incorrect, please let me know where I can find an official version of this that was released on North American hardware, but I don't think it exists. We still do not have an original version of Tales of Phantasia that you can play with an official English translation that's not a colossal piece of shit like the Game Boy Advance version. I still have it complete in box. I think it's a beautiful box. It's whatever that means. But it's such a disappointment because I just figured out what the Tales series was supposed to be about. I was going through Tales, this was before Tales of Vesperia, but like I finally figured Tales of Symphonia. I was into Tales of Symphonia, and this was just like such a letdown. Especially getting a game finally after so many years, and they just bastardized it. So yeah, that's my number 3. Tales of Phantasia.
Number 2.
All right. Well, my number 2 is made by a company that sure is responsible for a lot of heinous shit. Some good things. They had their good moments, but I feel like these days they're associated with a lot more kind of garbage than anything. But that's Ubisoft, and
that's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, yeah.
That
Yeah,
one.
there you go. That's the one. You know what they wanted to do? They were like, "Hey man, what if we took the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time, a beloved beat 'em up, and made it bad? What if we did that?" And so they did, and they called it Turtles in Time Reshelled in 2009 for the Xbox 360 and the PS3. Oh man, I remember when I saw this and I was like, "Oh hell yeah. One of my favorite Super Nintendo games of all time is getting a sweet, slick HD remake. You're going to have 3D models and shiny new graphics and shit. That's awesome." Like that I'm going to play it on newer hardware. Like maybe that means it'll be on PC then. Like if I want to play it on a PC, like not that you can do that already with emulators, but whatever. Spoiler is it's not on fucking PC, but that's okay because it's trash. So some decisions that were made when making this here remaster, remake, if you will, good choice. They got the voice cast of the 2003 animated show to actually voice the characters. That's pretty cool. Nice tie-in to pseudo current media, I guess at the time. I think that was before the next iteration of the TMNT like cartoon came out. So that's neat. That's a cool get. But that's kind of it. So they decided that they were going to remake, I shit you not, the arcade version, the 1991 arcade version of Turtles in Time, not the objectively better Super Nintendo adaptation. So none of the improvements, none of the additional levels, none of the changes that were made for the Super Nintendo flavor of Turtles in Time are included here. They remade the arcade version for some just unknown reason. I'm going to go with licensing. I don't know. It's an interesting choice, to be sure. But they took what was one of the best controlling, tightest, greatest feeling beat 'em ups in the history of beat 'em ups and made it feel bad. It controls like garbage because of the like nice little 3D polygonal coat of paint that they put over everything. And given that this was 2009, everything's got that like just really generic 3D pseudo cartoony kind of look, and it all just blends together. And it actually makes it really difficult to play the game in a lot of places just because there's so much going on the screen at certain times. And there's just not that definition that you get with crisp sprite work like what you had in the Super Nintendo version or even the arcade version. That just makes the experience just that much worse. Like almost every decision that went into this is just totally baffling. Like, I don't get it. How do you fumble this hard? It's one of the best beat 'em ups ever. And you took the subpar version. I mean, I guess I should be glad that they decided not to like remake the fucking Manhattan Project, but like they took the worst version of Turtles in Time and remade that and then made it even worse. So kudos to you, Ubisoft, I guess. Congrats.
I'm so happy I never played that.
It's still on my 360. I bought it digitally, so it's still on there.
I mean, your 360 might be the hard drive is probably worth something now because you have such an elusive game.
Yeah, it's right up there with PT, I'm sure.
Well, I guess it's time for my number 2. And this is the one that I have not played. And you might be asking, Chris, why are you going to talk about a game you haven't played for a remake? Why would you do that? Like, you don't know. It might be good. You haven't tried it. Like, you're terrible. How dare you judge a game you haven't tried? The game is Final Fantasy VI for mobile phones. Why? If that's not meaning anything to you, like, go look it up. You can't buy it anymore, by the way. Square got rid of that. And the reason is because they came out with the Pixel Remasters. And I have a suspicion. The reason they came out with the Pixel Remasters, you could probably throw Final Fantasy V in here too. Final Fantasy V on mobile phones was received not as poorly. But holy crap, the graphics in that game are just awful. They're terrible. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, no. It looked like a straight massacre. You know, there's sometimes, when you remake games, when you remaster, whatever you want to fuck it call, when you bring a game from one platform over to another, sometimes you just don't need to change anything. Okay? Final Fantasy VI looked great. It looks perfect. The pixel art is immaculate. I don't even like the Pixel Remaster redesigns for the pixels over the original Super Nintendo copies. I think it looks better on the Super Nintendo. It's perfect. Why would you take the sprites on the Super Nintendo and make this abomination and be like, consume Final Fantasy VI? You like Final Fantasy VI? Consume. No, I'm not going to consume. Fuck you. I know why you made the Pixel Remasters, because those were just giant flaming pieces of shit, and people told you they were pieces of shit, and you didn't know what to do, Square Enix. You're like, we'll just remake all of them, and we'll put them on the consoles too, and you'll have a good time. You kind of did make up for it, so thank you. But why would you do that? Why in God's name? Holy shit, fuck. It's so ugly. You took one of the most beautiful games on the Super Nintendo and you made it ugly. There's like no excuse for it. Like, was there a testing group that said that they like that? What, were they in preschool? I don't know the logic behind this.
They need to market to the kids, Chris, and the kids all play the games on the phones.
Of course, the kids play on the phones. The kids would love to hear about teenage pregnancy and attempted suicide. Those are things that kids definitely need to be educated about. That's the core demographic, because, you know, it wasn't like it could not have been aimed towards anyone who remotely enjoyed the original. Like, if you're trying to find a new audience, like, that wasn't the way either, because it looked like an RPG Maker-ass Chemco game. And I like the RPG Maker-ass Chemco games. I try to collect them as much as I can when I see them at limited run. They haven't been up there for a while. I don't know if they're done. The run is over with. But if ever I see one, I pick one out. Shoutouts to Ray. That's what we do. And no, I couldn't touch that. It's an affront on God, and everyone who made that deserves to go straight to hell. You know what? I've been quite generous towards developers and stuff like that. Not this time. No, you all suck. Hang your head in shame. Feel very, very, very disappointed that you were ever associated with that project. And you know what? Never put it on your resume. I would not put it on your resume. You know what? I'll give you this. We all make mistakes. It all happens. You know what? Just keep trucking on. You didn't know. You thought that you were making a parody. I get it. I get it. I get it. Final Fantasy VI on mobile phones.
Number 1.
All right. Well, here we are, folks. We're at the number 1 spot.
Gee, I wonder what it's going to be.
We may have already brought this up, and in a shocking turn of events to absolutely no one, my number 1 is one of the biggest wastes of money I think I've ever spent on, and that's the Silent Hill HD collection. I feel like I want to say that I'm so miffed about this one that I have transcended anger, and I have just entered a Zen state of acceptance. Because, I mean, what would you expect, right? What would you expect when you ask an absolute no-name development shop whose repertoire, up until this point, consisted of a few shitty licensed music games to recreate 2 of the most well-known survival horror games of all time, essentially from scratch. Oh, and also fix a bunch of bugs that were previously patched in the original games, but for some reason what they're working with, because, oh, by the way, they weren't given the source code because they couldn't find it. They just didn't have it. It disappeared. Nobody knows where it went. So they had to work with pre-release code of these fucking PS2 games and refix bugs and build a lot of it just from the ground up because it wasn't there. So to be fair, I have a hard time like pinning this on Hijinks Studios because they were given an impossible task. I don't think anybody could have pulled that off correctly given what they were provided and given the time that they had to do it. That, however, does not mean that I'm, saying that I'm letting this one off the hook, because I mean, it is my number 1, and Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and it is on many lists the best survival horror game ever. And it would be a real travesty if someone picked up this HD collection and had in their mind like, hey man, that Silent Hill 2 sure sounded good. Lots of people say they love it. And Silent Hill 3 also heard it was pretty good. Hey, they made it for modern consoles. I should pick that up and finally experience this, because this is probably one of, if not the worst ways to experience either of those games. And I really, truly feel sorry for anybody whose first delve into Silent Hill was this fucking dumpster fire. Because is it playable? Yes. Does it completely strip any of the ambiance, like the atmosphere, just totally out of the experience? Also, yes. One of the biggest things, as Chris mentioned earlier, is the just total removal of the fog. Totally mind-boggling decision there. I can only imagine that it was some line of thought of like, well, we don't have to do this now because we got better hardware, so let's let the players see the whole thing. And you know what that turned into? Seeing a half-finished fucking lake, among other things, because the levels are not fully complete. The fog was there to functionally cover a lot of shortcomings there due to hardware limitations. That was the point of the fog. It was a happy circumstance that like it also became an absolute integral and iconic part of the experience because it made everything feel claustrophobic, even when you're outside. So it is quite literally a main primary piece of the Silent Hill 2 experience. But also, yeah, you just see the end of the world. Like the water texture, it just stops. It just stops. It's just there. It just drops into nothing.
Oh, hold on. That could be a Jungian kind of metaphor about the consciousness and water and the end of the world.
Hey, Chris, do you think that a company called Hijinks Studios was thinking that deeply about it? Do you?
I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge Shane. You never know.
Listen, man, this was an absolute insult to anyone who likes the Silent Hill series. I was so hyped for this when it came out, and just imagine my abject disappointment when I threw this in and just saw how they massacred my boy. Yeah, man, it is on another level. I mean, Chris brought it up, but yeah, there was a reason why when I was offloading a bunch of old physical games and stuff, and I was just like, hey, you want this? Because I sure as fuck don't. Oh, man.
That means a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And, now at the time of the recording, this is actually fortuitous because we just had the Silent Hill 2 remaster come out by Bloober Studios, and by all accounts it's actually really good. I was not expecting that at all. Based 100% on my experience with this HD collection, I just assumed the worst. So imagine my pleasant surprise when it turns out that somebody didn't completely and colossally fuck up one of my favorite games ever.
Well, at least we had it both on our list.
Yes. I mean, I feel like that highlights the magnitude
How bad
of fuckery.
Yeah. It's bad. But on to my number one. I almost feel like Shane put a capstone on it. I almost wish he closed out this episode because that was great. I'm not going to be as passionate about this. I'm just, because this is about a game that fundamentally, like the original version of the game, I don't like. This is how much I think this remake is bad. And this is a remake. This is a remaster. So to kind of set the stage, during the PlayStation 2 era of gaming, when Sega was trying to figure out how to life again, and they decided to come out with a series of games called the 2500 series. And a lot of these games were remakes of older games that they were updating, quote, updating the graphics and sound and all that stuff like that. Mixed results for the most part. Some of them were okay. Like the Phantasy Star series has some decent reception on how that plays on the PlayStation 2. And some are pretty divisive, like Space Harrier Outrun. And we got a version of this in the United States. It was called the Sega Ages collection. It came with, I think it came with Outrun, Space Harrier, Bonanza Brothers. I think it's been called Bonanza Brothers. And a couple others. Fantasy Zone. Fantasy Zone is actually like a really good version on that disc. But there's one game in particular that sticks out for its horrendousness. And this game I didn't necessarily like for the Genesis. I thought it's just because it's antiquated. It's a beat 'em up. It's not something I love. And that game is Golden Axe. And how bad does a game have to be in order for me to put this at my number one for Golden Axe for the PlayStation 2? How bad does a game have to be that I have to put it at my number one when the original game is not one I even particularly care for in the first place? Oh, it's bad. It's bad. I don't know if it's TurboGrafx CD level of bad. It's probably comparable. But like, I can at least look back at the TurboGrafx CD and be like, wasn't Sega making it? It was part of the era. Like, there's not as much expectations. It's pretty horrid. But you're talking about 20, I would say almost 20 years. Almost 20 years of lessons learned, development protocols, hit detection, graphical development, stuff you kind of, I don't know, think you would learn. This game is ugly. It looks horrible. It looks like it was made by like an intern. That's how the game looks. It's like if Sega was walking down the streets of the Akihabara and they just walked up to some random dude or random gal and said, "Hey, do you like Golden Axe?" And they said, "Yeah." Like, do you know C Sharp? "Oh yeah. Would you like to make a game for us?" What? Yeah, just go ahead and make Golden Axe. You have 2 weeks. Give us what you got at the end of the week. And they would just put that, they just printed that on a disc. That's what the game looks like. It is and the reason it's my number one is because this is supposed to be like a legendary series. This is supposed to be a game that's supposed to be defining of what like that early Sega era was. There are so many people that define Golden Axe as like a bastion of the arcade era of the 80s and what Sega was before you had Sonic the Hedgehog, and how important that is to a lot of people that grew up during that time. And for them just to come out with this game that just looks incredibly half-assed, that looks like there was just no consideration into what it was. Like everything's a 3D polygonal model and it looks just awful. It looks like this could have been on like a late PlayStation game or an N64 game. We're talking about a fucking PS2 game. Granted, it's like a $2,500 yen budget game, but go compare that to Outrun, which granted, Outrun's not perfect on the PS2, but at least it's a somewhat accurate representation of what that game was. Even Space Harrier is fun and they have some quality of life improvements and everything like that. This game is just shit. It's just shit. Like, I don't know. I want to like Golden Axe, and I do love Sega. And so when I see them just completely crap all over their products, and like they love to crap on Golden Axe for every single time they bring it back. I at the time of this recording, they've been saying that they're going to try and bring back some old franchises. I think Golden Axe is included in there. I am like extremely skeptical on what they're going to be doing with that, considering their history with the series, because it has just been nothing but botch after botch after botch after botch. And this isn't a small company. It wasn't even like, I guess, you know, Sega, you could consider Sega was still reeling at that point, but like, this is still Sega. And for them to like roll out something that seems like it like was made by some dude in his basement with like nothing else to do in their life, but didn't really feel like putting anything together of quality within a month. That's what you're going to get with Golden Axe. And I can't stand that. I hate to see it. So Golden Axe is my number one game for remakes or remasters that missed the mark.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. You know, I was thinking about it while you're talking. I was trying to figure out like what would you do with the Golden Axe like IP that, you know, would be good, but would still like kind of do it justice. I feel like you could probably pull off a pretty solid, like behind the shoulder, third person perspective, just like action hack and slash RPG. Like, I feel like that's doable. Like you can even go all in and just do like a Dynasty Warriors style, you know, just cut through hordes of goblins or something.
Why don't you just like make a medieval Yakuza?
Yeah, or you could go that way. Yeah.
Just with like weapons and stuff. Make it cheesy as hell, because the game is cheesy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
incredibly cheesy.
It's like it's like the video game equivalent of like what's airbrushed on the side of like a van.
Exactly. Like it's Conan the Barbarian for I mean, that probably literally is where they got the inspiration from, but I want that. Like, give me a Yakuza game set in a high fantasy world with Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare, but not like overly cheesy. Make it like He-Man 80s cheesy.
Yeah,
like not aware that they're cheesy. Like, because I think that's something that I know we're going on a little bit of tangent here and extending out this probably already long flight a little bit more, but you know how like a lot of modern recreations of 80s cartoons are just like too self-aware of how cheesy they are. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like you have to come off as like you don't know you're being cheesy.
Yeah, you got to be authentic about it.
Yes. Like you actually think you're being cool when you totally are not.
Well, there you have it. I assumed that this was going to be a flight that maybe did not consider your chronometer quite as much as the others, because
No, we did.
we had a lot to say about these. It's crazy what happens when you get real salty about stuff. You kind of want to just rant about it. So there you go. At the very least, I hope it was entertaining. I think it was. I had a good time. I think it was cathartic. I don't know about you.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I did. We both teared apart the Silent Hill HD collection. That is a victory for everybody.
Very true. But anyway, I'm gonna keep the rest of this short because we're already running real long. So hey, we hope you enjoyed this one. If you would like to participate in the discussion, please jump into our public Discord. You can find that as well as our Patreon, our merch store, our socials, our Twitch channel, and our YouTube. All of it is at our link tree. So just head over to linktree/retro hangover. That's linktr.ee/retro hangover. And if you would like to influence the topics for these flights, then you may consider becoming a patron of the show for as little as $1. And you too can vote on what it is that we are going to talk about. So, exercise that democratic power and get in there. Be the change you want to see. But anyway, that's all I got. Anything else, Chris, before we wrap this thing up?
We talked about voting, and now I'm depressed.
Well, that's a good a place as any to leave it, I guess.
Watch our streams, 9 p.m. Twitch, YouTube, Sundays, Eastern Time. See you there. I'm all sad now.
Yay. Well, if the bad remakes didn't make you sad, then that definitely will. So, with all of that being said, until next time.
Play with your Let's Remake It joysticks.